Welcome into Pigskin Perspectives. Another football weekend is just ahead of us. It's technically already started with Thursday night football, as always on this channel. We'll do what we usually do here. We'll do my six-pack for the weekend in college football. We'll look at the NFL, and I'll give you all my thoughts on everything in between. So let's get started with college football, my six-pack for the week. As always, I pick the six most intriguing games I think, give you my thoughts on them, any helpful insight, and move into that. So we start out, no real good games in that noon window. There's games, they're not great, honestly. They could be so much better, but hey, that's just how scheduling works. The later we get in the season, the more and more the important games are going to be played later on in the day, unless you're on Fox, of course. So given that, we will start out with the first game on here, and that is the 3:30 kickoff on Fox. It is number 8 Oregon traveling to number 13 Utah. Utah coming off that last second field goal to beat USC after they had I believe 14-point lead in the game. Then they lost it and then won on the field goal. Oregon coming in off their win against Washington State. The week before was the Washington game they lost. This is going to be a real test as they head back on the road against a very good opponent, a place that they haven't won often. It's going to be a real interesting challenge for Bo Nix and that offense to try to score against this Utah defense. And it's going to be the same on the other side. Cam Rising officially out for the year for Utah at quarterback. But Utah has just replaced him, and it looks like they haven't lost anything. This team is still really good, which is why they're ranked 13th in the country, and I think they're going to give Oregon some trouble. I still think Oregon comes away with the victory in this one. It might be really too close for comfort for some Oregon fans. Moving on to the next 3:30 game that I have on here. We have three 3:30 games. It is whatever you want to call it. They've gotten rid of the names over the years. It's kind of like the Red River rivalry. It's changed names 5 times. It is the Florida-Georgia game or the Georgia-Florida game, depending on where you're from. If you're from 15 years ago, it's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. That I think like the River City rivalry or something, they want to try to get that going. No, it's still and feels like it will always be the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville as number 1 Georgia take on unranked Florida. It's Georgia's first game after losing Brock Bowers for most likely the rest of the regular season. Probably a conference championship game also, but that's too far away to figure out. As these two teams always play close. I mean, I am repping the Georgia Bulldogs tonight. These two teams always play close, so I'm not counting Florida out. I actually think they have a good chance in this game. I feel like, yes, Florida isn't like as good as people thought they might be this year. But given that Georgia has lost their biggest offensive weapon in Brock Bowers, I think Florida can keep it close. I think they have an outside shot of winning. Do I think they'll actually win? No, because I think this Georgia team's just built differently. But, I mean, Florida can keep this game close. I think they have a real good shot in it, and it's going to be an entertaining game nonetheless, I think. I don't see this being a blowout. And I think both teams have real good shots coming into this game. I don't feel like one team's a heavy favorite over the other, even though, stats would lean towards Georgia being a heavy favorite here. Moving on to the last 3:30 game, it is number 20 Duke traveling to number 11 Louisville. This is quite... Actually, I don't think Louisville's number 11. I think that was a typo there, but hey, we move on. It's a really interesting game. Duke stayed in the game with Florida State for 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter just kind of fell apart. Louisville obviously had that disgusting loss to Pitt 2 weeks ago. So now here we are. I think these are 2 of the better teams in the ACC. I think this is a competition for third place in the ACC right now because it's Florida State, North Carolina, and then these 2. Given that, I think this is going to be a really interesting game. I think the home team, which is Louisville, is the favorite here because it's at home. I think you put these 2 on neutral sites. I think it's an even split of both of these teams' talent. I'm excited to watch this game. There's going to be a lot of multiple screens going on at the same time. But this should be entertainment value, I hope. But it is ACC football, so it is bound to disappoint most likely. Moving on, 7:30. You have number 3 Ohio State traveling to Camp Randall to face off against Wisconsin. This Luke Fickell's first matchup as a Big Ten coach against his alma mater, a team where he was the interim coach for a full season. Wisconsin, I don't think is having the season everybody expected them to, but it's year 1 of the Luke Fickell era. You got to give it time before, they're going 10-2. I don't really think they have a huge shot in this game because I just think that talent-wise, it's a gap, and I think Wisconsin will struggle in this game. But I also do think they can give Ohio State trouble because Ohio State still a team that seems untested, even though they've played these really important games so far with Penn State and Notre Dame. They just feel very untested for some reason. So I wouldn't be surprised if Wisconsin tries to figure something out there. But obviously Wisconsin is without Tanner Mordecai, their starting quarterback, who is out for the rest of the season. Colorado, coming off a bye, will face off against UCLA at the Rose Bowl at 7:30. I don't expect this game to be close, but I expect it to be high scoring. You have Deion Sanders, Colorado Buffaloes, with their non-existent defense, going up against, I think, an underrated UCLA offense that has the ability to put up a lot of points. So, but then on the other side, of course, you have the Colorado offense that's been putting up a lot of points this year. So I truly wouldn't be surprised either way with the win in this game. Actually, I would be surprised if Colorado pulls off the upset here, but I expect this to be a high-scoring game. That's all I expect from this one. Moving on to the final game of our pick six, or of my pick six, I should say. It is number 11, Oregon State. They are actually 11, not Louisville being 11. They are going to Tucson to face off against the Arizona Wildcats. This is the definition of a trap game for Oregon State. We saw Washington struggle on the road in Tucson a few weeks ago. We saw Arizona go into USC, go into the Coliseum, take them to 3 overtimes, I believe it was, end up losing, but still, they were in that game for a while. I'm worried about Oregon State in this one because, like I said, I think this is a trap game. Arizona just always seems to play teams like really well at home, and the away teams just can't get stuff figured out. I'm worried that we're getting to November, which means it's the start of Pac-12 cannibalization season. I think this might be the first, stumbling block in that. So given that is the Week 9 six-pack. Again, there aren't a ton of outstanding games this weekend that I felt needed to make the list. I think this is the 6, basically. But there's still some really good games. So moving on, we'll move on to the NFL. Right now, the Buccaneers are taking on the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park. The Bills they're winning at this moment. They still look like they're struggling. I don't know what happened to this Bills team. They have most of that talent back, and they just don't look the part this year. I think everybody expected them to be this dominant team, and I don't really think they are, honestly. The Buccaneers aren't much better, but they play in the NFC South, which almost makes things even worse, but hey. Moving on to Sunday, the Los Angeles Rams travel to Arlington to face off against the Cowboys. This should be an interesting game, I think. The Cowboys, obviously, America's team. Always hyped up, always, front of the storylines. Again, I don't think they're great this year. I think the teams they've beaten they're better than the Cowboys. I think this is a potential loss for the Cowboys here. The Rams are much better than what people expected from them. And I think that they can sneak away with victory here in Arlington. Moving on to an NFC North battle, it is the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Lambeau Field to face off against the Green Bay Packers. Both teams aren't good. Minnesota has too much talent to be this bad right now. Green Bay just doesn't seem to have talent. I don't know. I thought they had a lot of good young talent. Jordan Love just doesn't look good. The defense, never healthy. So, I don't know. The Atlanta Falcons travel to Tennessee, and you'd think they'd be traveling to Houston with what the Titans will be wearing on Sunday. They are wearing the throwback Houston Oilers uniforms. I think I discussed it when they were unveiled. I get it because it's still the same franchise technically, but it feels quite odd. It's like the Hurricanes wearing Whalers jerseys still. This is going to be a battle of two bad quarterbacks, to be honest. It is Desmond Ridder going up against Will Levis. Will Levis getting his first career start. Ryan Tannehill injured, out for, I think, a few weeks. So we get the Will Levis experience. I think this is going to be an ugly game. It's just, neither of these quarterbacks I think are good. You might be saying, well, how can you judge a quarterback who hasn't even made his first career start in the NFL? Well, he puts mayo in his coffee, and that's never a good start. The New Orleans Saints travel to Indianapolis, face off against the Colts, a Colts team that got robbed of a win on Sunday. I think are looking to avenge that. They played really well in that game. I mean, they not tore apart, but they made a very generationally good Browns defense look bad. I mean, they gave up it was 38 points or something like that. With Jacksonville running away with the division, obviously I can't say Indianapolis can, lurk around and win the division possibly, but I still think Indianapolis is making strides this year, even though Anthony Richardson's out for the rest of the year. I think the Colts have shown a lot more than I expected, I guess I would say. I I'd expect the Colts to get the victory here, but honestly, who knows? The New England Patriots, coming off their win against the Buffalo Bills, travel down to Miami to face off against the Dolphins. The Dolphins team that lost to the Eagles, kind of put them on fraud watch a little. It's going to be interesting to see how this Dolphins team bounce back, especially since you're facing off against Bill Belichick, a man who just loves to beat up on his division opponents, which honestly I would not be surprised at all if the Patriots somehow find a way to win this game. But I kind of expect a little bit of a return to normalcy with the Dolphins offense back to looking outstanding. But honestly, anything could happen. I didn't mention this at the start. There's no bye weeks this week. It's week 8? And we just inexplicably have no bye weeks. It doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. That means more football. Who can complain about that? I can find a way, I guess. The New York Jets travel, well, they're not traveling anywhere. They are facing off against the New York Giants. Obviously, those two share the same stadium. It's the Giants that are the designated home team here. I really don't know about this game. The Giants just aren't good, but hey, who knows? Honestly, I don't know. The Jets, I think, are the better team here, but I can always see a way of them losing. The Pittsburgh Steelers, off a win against the LA Rams, they will play host to the Jacksonville Jaguars. A Jacksonville Jaguars team that looks to have bounced back. Starting to look like what people expected them to look like this year. I expect them to get the win here, but saying that, that means the Steelers are going to somehow luck their way into a victory, as it seems they have 4 times this year, honestly. The Philadelphia Eagles travel down to Landover, Maryland, I should say, to face off against the Washington Commanders. I expect the Eagles to roll in this one. The Commanders I don't think are good at all, but hey, who knows? Any given Sunday, anything can happen. The battle of the first 2 quarterbacks taken in this past draft, it is the Houston Texans going up against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers obviously are not good this year. They gave up a lot to get Bryce Young, and it's not 100% working out right now. I think he's more of a long-term quarterback than, hey, let's figure it out now. But going up against C.J. Stroud, who was the 2nd overall pick in the draft, or 3rd, something like that. He was the 2nd quarterback taken in the draft. He's played really well this year. I think he's got a really good shot of winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think the Texans win this one because I think the Texans have more talent here, and the Panthers just flat out aren't good. And it's not good for them because they're not good and not getting a pick to help this team develop next year because that pick is with the Chicago Bears. We get into the 4:05 game on Fox. It is Cleveland Browns traveling to Seattle, and it's going to look like they traveled back to 1990, I guess, back when these two teams were both in the AFC. Seattle Seahawks pulling out their throwback uniforms for the first time since 2001 when they got rid of that uniform set. The Seahawks are going to look like what the Seahawks should look like once again. Given that, I'm very worried about the Browns because I do believe, even though it doesn't matter, if you look at aesthetically, you look good, which is what the Seahawks will be doing. I think that helps you in my prediction, at least. I said that about the Eagles last week. They looked absolutely amazing in those throwbacks. I said that about the Buccaneers. That didn't help them because they lost that game against the Lions. But hey, it's going to be interesting to see if that generationally good Browns defense shows up this week and holds Geno Smith and the Seahawks, to less than 20 points. I think it's a possibility. I think there's a chance the Browns come away with the win in this one. But just given what the Seahawks are going to be looking like in this game, I kind of feel like I have to pick against my team, the Browns, and go with the Seahawks in this one. In the 4:25 game, it's Kansas City traveling to Denver to face off against the Broncos. Broncos coming off their second win of the season. I still expect Kansas City roll in this one. Russ is still not cooking, and the Broncos still aren't good. The Ravens, coming off their bounce-back win and blowout win of the Detroit Lions, travel to Arizona to face off against the Cardinals. I expect Baltimore to roll in this one, kind of like I said about the Denver-Kansas City game. I just expect Baltimore here. And what might be the game of the week should have been flexed to one of the night games because the two night games I think are absolutely atrocious. We'll get to those very soon. The Cincinnati Bengals, who have seemed to bounce back a little bit, still sit bottom of the AFC North, traveled to Santa Clara to face off against the 49ers, a 49ers team on a 2-game losing streak after starting the season 5-0. I think this is the game that the 49ers have to show that they can bounce back before I say they're not a Super Bowl contender. I think they can get it done in this one, but I'm not counting Joe Burrow and that Bengals offense out. I still think the 49ers finally get that bounce back, given it's at home, and get the victory in this one. Moving on to the Sunday night game, which wasn't flexed for some reason. I have no idea. Is the Chicago Bears facing off against the Los Angeles Chargers. Why are we doing this? This can be such a bad game to watch. The Bears are bad. The Chargers are badly coached. This is just going to be an awful game. I don't even want to watch it, but I'm sure there will be absolutely nothing else on at that time, and they're going to make you watch that game. It's going to be disgusting. And finally, the Monday night game. Another game I think might be absolutely disgusting. The Las Vegas Raiders travel to Detroit to face off against the Lions on Monday Night Football. The Lions coming off their blowout loss to the Ravens. The Raiders lost to the Bears last week, which should say something. I think the Lions win this one because they're the better team here. But if they lose this one, the Lions are on big fraud watch because you shouldn't be losing to the Raiders. So given that, that is going to be it for this weekend preview of football, basically. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back on Tuesday for a recap of all these games. So if you stumbled across this video, hit that subscribe button so you see that video on Tuesday. Hit the like button also if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you back here on Tuesday night for another episode of Pigskin Perspectives.